Sometimes the coldest storms hide the warmest miracles, Daniel Harper whispered to himself as he peered through the swirling snow. The blizzard howling across the northern Michigan landscape, frosting every tree branch and blanketing the narrow road in a thick, unbroken white. Blaze, his 6-year-old German shepherd, stood beside him, amber eyes scanning the frozen horizon, ears flicking at every distant crack of ice and groan of the wind, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. The road ahead disappeared into a wall of white, and yet Daniel's instincts, honed from years of service and nights spent listening to the subtle rhythms of nature, told him the Whitmores were close, waiting, and vulnerable. The couple had sent word through a local ranger station earlier that morning, their old voices trembling with urgency as they described the impossibility of the snowstorm, the drifts taller than their roofline, and the way the wind ripped at every loose board of their small, forgotten cabin. Daniel tightened the straps on his parka, feeling the stiffness in his shoulders from long hours on the road, and adjusted the leash in his gloved hand, feeling the solid, reassuring weight of Blaze's harness. They moved cautiously along the icy path, every step crunching through 3 feet of freshly fallen snow, the only sounds the distant creak of bending trees and the faint whistle of the wind threading through the pines. As they approached a sharp bend near a frozen creek, Blaze stiffened, nose twitching, muscles coiled, his growl low and steady, signaling danger ahead. Daniel froze, squinting through the snow, and then caught sight of a faint figure struggling against the white, the outline of Martha Whitmore leaning against a fallen fence post, Henry's arm barely clinging to her as they were pushed back by the force of the gale. Daniel's chest tightened, heart hammering with a mixture of fear and urgency, and he called out, voice slicing through the blizzard, "Hold on, we're coming." The couple's heads turned, faces pale, eyes wide with a mix of hope and disbelief. Daniel took a deep breath, lifted a knee, and kicked off into the drift, Blaze leading the way, nose to the wind, instincts guiding each movement, ears alert to every tremor of ice and snow underfoot. The snow pressed heavily against their coats, frosting Daniel's eyelashes, biting through gloves and jacket layers, yet neither he nor Blaze faltered. Step by step, they closed the gap, Daniel reaching out to Henry, steadying him while Blaze pressed close to Martha, keeping her upright and warm with the sheer presence of his strong, protective frame. At that moment, time seemed suspended, the blizzard's fury wrapping them in a cocoon of white, the cold gnawing at every inch of exposed skin, and yet the warmth of courage, of trust, and of steadfast loyalty shone brighter than any sun. Daniel felt a familiar, grounding rhythm as Blaze's paw pressed into the snow, guiding them, signaling the safest path through the drifted mess of fallen branches and hidden ice. And the couple followed, trusting the veteran and the dog to lead them toward shelter. Every step brought relief, yet the storm threatened at every turn, a reminder of how fragile life could be, how much every choice mattered, and how sometimes the smallest acts of bravery carried the weight of miracles yet to unfold. Daniel Harper led Martha and Henry through the snow-covered path, every footfall sinking into the drifts that reached above his knees, the wind howling through the bare branches like a restless spirit, yet the warmth of Blaze pressed against the couple offered a quiet reassurance, his fur bristling with alert energy as he guided them toward the faint glow of a distant cabin. The air smelled of pine and frozen earth, a crisp metallic tang blending with the scent of snow, and Daniel's gloves were damp, fingers stiffening, but he did not slow, each step measured, careful, mindful of hidden ice and uneven ground. The couple's breaths came in shallow, rapid bursts, cheeks pink from cold and exertion, Henry leaning heavily on Daniel's shoulder, Martha gripping Blaze's harness with trembling hands, and Daniel spoke in low, calm tones, narrating each movement, each obstacle. Step here, careful, follow Blaze. The dog moved ahead, then back, then circling, guiding them with an instinctive intelligence that seemed almost human, ears rotating, nose to the wind, sensing every subtle change in the landscape. Snowflakes clung to eyelashes, melting slowly into the warmth of breath as Daniel's boots struck branches buried under frost, cracking softly beneath the weight, while the distant cabin's light grew brighter, a beacon through the swirling white. A moment came when the trio approached a fallen tree that blocked the narrow trail, branches thick with ice, and Daniel crouched, brushing a path through the lower limbs, while Blaze nudged Martha gently, signaling trust, patience, safety. Henry muttered thanks, voice cracking, and Daniel smiled faintly beneath the hood of his parka, eyes scanning for the next hazard. Every shadow, every movement, every whisper of snow accounted for. The wind shifted suddenly, bringing a colder gust, yet the cabin's amber light glimmered, guiding them like a steady heartbeat. And with each careful step, the snow beneath their feet became less treacherous, Daniel's voice quiet, rhythmic, reinforcing courage, while Blaze's presence anchored them, a living compass. As they reached a small clearing, Daniel lifted Henry over a drift, then reached back to assist Martha, and for the first time, the blizzard's roar seemed to recede, a temporary calm in the midst of chaos, snowflakes drifting lazily now, as if granting them passage. Their shadows stretched across the snow toward the cabin, long and thin, and Daniel could feel the weight of the storm lifting slightly, the oppressive cold giving way to hope. The moment was almost surreal, the harsh white landscape softened by the amber glow ahead, every breath a rhythm in the silent symphony of survival, every heartbeat a reminder of trust, loyalty, and quiet courage. And when they finally set foot on the cabin's porch, icy boards creaking under weight, Daniel exhaled deeply, chest tight with relief, Blaze circling protectively, alert to every movement, while Martha and Henry paused, taking in the warm light spilling from windows, faces etched with awe and gratitude. And for the first time that day, they felt the true weight of being seen, being saved, and moving from despair toward safety. Inside the cabin, the warmth from the small wood stove spread slowly, carrying the scent of pine smoke and melting snow into every corner, wrapping Daniel Harper, Blaze, Martha, and Henry in a quiet relief that seemed almost sacred. Daniel moved with deliberate care, brushing snow from their coats and guiding the elderly couple to settle near the hearth, Blaze curling beside them, head resting on Martha's lap, eyes half closed but alert, sensing every subtle creak and shift of the wooden floor. The wind outside continued its constant howl, rattling the windows and bending the bare branches of the surrounding pines, but within the cabin, a calm prevailed, broken only by the occasional pop of the stove and the soft rasp of breath as each person adjusted to the warmth. Henry reached for Daniel's hand, frail fingers trembling, and spoke with a voice thick with emotion. "We thought no one would come." Daniel simply nodded, allowing the moment to settle, the gravity of the day weighing lightly now against the comfort of being safe. Blaze lifted his head, ears flicking at the faintest sound from outside, a gentle reminder that vigilance had not ended, that survival required awareness even in safety. The cabin's dim light illuminated the lines of Martha's face, each wrinkle a testament to years of endurance, and Daniel's own expression softened as he observed them, recognizing the resilience hidden beneath fear and cold. He poured a small tin cup of warm water for Blaze, who lapped it quietly, then returned to resting against Martha, warmth shared without words. Daniel drew a deep breath, feeling the rhythm of the storm's fury outside and the counterbalance of stillness inside, a juxtaposition that seemed almost deliberate, as if the world itself had orchestrated this moment of protection and care. The conversation between the three humans was tentative at first, stories exchanged in low, careful tones, memories of winters past, and lessons learned, each anecdote a bridge across the gap of age and circumstance. As the afternoon wore on, the snow softened outside, light from the fading sun casting long, pale shadows across the cabin floor, and Daniel felt the quiet satisfaction that comes from having guided others to safety, the subtle, persistent warmth of purpose settling in his chest. Blaze's ears twitched as a small flake of snow hit the window pane, and Daniel smiled faintly, understanding the dog's constant vigilance was a gift that kept them all safe. The couple's gratitude was unspoken but palpable, conveyed in shared glances, small nods, and the gentle pressure of hands meeting hands. Daniel adjusted the blanket around Henry's shoulders and Martha's knees, noticing how the warmth seemed to seep into them, a physical representation of the security they had just received. Outside, the snow continued to fall in a silent rhythm, a soft white curtain that separated the cabin from the chaotic storm, while inside, the small group settled into a peaceful quiet, each heartbeat syncing with the other, each breath a quiet affirmation of trust, resilience, and the subtle miracle of having found refuge and each other in the midst of a relentless winter. As the evening deepened, the cabin seemed to exhale. The storm outside softened into a gentle whispering of snow against the roof, and Daniel Harper moved among them with quiet purpose, tending to the small fire that now crackled steadily in the hearth, the amber glow painting soft shadows on the walls and warming frozen fingers and toes. Blaze lay close to Martha, occasionally lifting his head to glance toward the door, ears twitching, alert yet calm, a sentinel watching over the fragile peace of the moment. Henry leaned back against the wall, eyes closed briefly, inhaling the warmth and the faint scent of pine smoke mixed with the earthy fragrance of melting snow tracked in on boots and fur, while Daniel refilled a small tin cup with warm water for the couple, speaking in a steady, soothing tone, narrating small observations. The wind is easing now, the snowflakes falling slower, just like breathing, and the couple responded with small nods, faces softening, the tension of fear giving way to relief. Through the window, pale streaks of moonlight illuminated the drifting snow, creating a silver tapestry across the frozen landscape, while inside, each movement of Daniel and Blaze carried a rhythm that seemed almost choreographed, a silent ballet of care and vigilance, balancing comfort and watchfulness. He offered Martha a woolen blanket, tucking it around her shoulders, and guided Henry to a stool closer to the fire, the warmth seeping into their chilled bodies, melting away the tension of the day. Blaze raised his head and let out a low, contented sigh, eyes meeting Daniel's with understanding, a silent acknowledgement of the shared ordeal and the quiet triumph of reaching safety. Conversation became more relaxed, stories of winters past and memories of small joys exchanged softly, the storm outside now just a distant backdrop, a reminder of the challenge they had overcome together, and Daniel listened as carefully as he guided, his presence steady, a pillar of calm in a night that had begun with chaos. Each flicker of flame seemed to accentuate the textures of the cabin, the rough wood beams, the worn floorboards, the chipped edges of the windows that had withstood decades of weather, now witnessing a small miracle of endurance and connection. The night deepened, and with each passing hour, the group felt the weight of the day lift, replaced by gratitude, trust, and a burgeoning sense of hope. Daniel's eyes reflecting the firelight as he glanced at Blaze and the elderly couple, recognizing that moments like these, quiet and unspoken, carried more power than any grand gesture, and as the snow fell gently beyond the walls, muffling all other sound, the cabin became a sanctuary of warmth, loyalty, and the subtle miracle of kindness returned in the most unexpected way. Morning light filtered softly through the frost-coated windows, casting a delicate glow across the cabin floor as Daniel Harper moved quietly, stoking the fire to a steady warmth that filled every corner with comfort. Blaze stirred, stretching his powerful frame and settling again near Martha and Henry, who were now more relaxed, their breath steady, cheeks flushed with warmth and relief. Daniel poured fresh hot water into tin cups, the steam curling upward, and handed one to Henry, whose eyes reflected gratitude deeper than words could express, while Martha wrapped her hands around her cup, inhaling the faint aroma of pine and melted snow that lingered in the cabin. Outside, the wind had softened to a gentle whisper, the snow forming a crystalline blanket over the trees and roof, but inside, every heartbeat was attuned to the rhythm of quiet recovery. Daniel moved to a small table, brushing snow from the bench and gesturing for the couple to sit, speaking softly, narrating small observations about the soft morning light, the subtle shimmer of frost on branches, and the distant call of a lone bird braving the winter air, each sound a reminder that life continued beyond the storm. Blaze raised his head briefly, ears alert, then rested again, his amber eyes reflecting the firelight as if acknowledging the safety and serenity of the moment. Daniel helped Martha and Henry adjust the blanket around their shoulders and knees, noticing how their bodies relaxed into the warmth, shoulders dropping, eyes closing briefly, a shared sigh of comfort escaping them. Conversation flowed slowly, tender and careful, stories of winters past and memories of quiet joys exchanged in soft tones. The storm outside now a distant memory, and each word seemed to stitch a fragile bond between them, a tapestry of trust, kindness, and shared endurance. Daniel observed the texture of the cabin, the weathered wood beams, the patterns of frost on the window panes, the small chips and dents that marked the passage of time, and he felt the steady weight of presence, the quiet miracle of having guided the elderly couple to this sanctuary. Blaze shifted slightly, nudging Martha gently, reminding all that loyalty and vigilance still lingered even in peace. The couple's eyes followed the dog with a mix of wonder and affection, recognizing the quiet intelligence and devotion that had brought them here, and Daniel felt a deep, grounding satisfaction as he poured another cup of water, the steam swirling and mingling with the faint scent of melting snow on clothing and fur. The firelight flickered across the cabin walls, casting shadows that danced gently in the morning, echoing the subtle pulse of life and hope within, and as the snow glistened outside in silver and white, Daniel, Blaze, Martha, and Henry shared a tranquil moment, hearts aligned in the quiet understanding that courage, kindness, and steadfast presence had guided them through the storm. And the cabin now held not only warmth and shelter, but the intangible gift of restored trust, hope, and the enduring reassurance that they were not alone in the world. The morning light deepened into a soft golden glow as Daniel Harper stood by the cabin window, watching the snow continue to fall in gentle sheets that sparkled like crushed glass across the frozen landscape, each flake reflecting a quiet serenity that contrasted sharply with the storm of the previous day. Blaze rested his chin on the windowsill, amber eyes scanning the woods beyond, muscles relaxed yet alert, a living sentinel for the small household. Martha sipped slowly from her tin cup, steam curling around her face, cheeks warmed by the fire and the first hints of sunlight, while Henry adjusted the blanket around his shoulders, inhaling the comforting aroma of pine smoke that mingled with the subtle scent of snow melting at the edges of the cabin. Daniel moved toward the small table, arranging the simple breakfast of oatmeal and hot tea, each movement deliberate and calm, a rhythm that seemed to settle the lingering tension in the room. Outside, the wind had softened to a low whisper, the skeletal branches of the pines swaying lightly, shadows stretching across the snow in long, delicate lines. Daniel spoke in quiet tones, recounting small observations. The snow is lighter now, each flake drifting slowly, almost like it is carrying away the chill from last night. And Martha nodded, a soft smile tugging at her lips, eyes reflecting a sense of safety and gratitude. Blaze lifted his head briefly, ears twitching, then returned to his comfortable position by Martha's side, a silent guardian whose presence alone seemed to fill the room with reassurance. Daniel moved to check the door, brushing away residual snow from the threshold, listening to the subtle sounds of the forest awakening, the distant call of a bird, the soft crack of ice settling on tree limbs, and the faint murmur of a nearby stream partially freed from the ice. The cabin seemed alive with small movements, a symphony of quiet resilience, echoing the endurance that each person had displayed just hours before. Conversation became lighter, stories of past winters and simple joys exchanged in gentle tones, each word weaving a fragile bond that transcended age and circumstance, while the fire continued its soft crackle, casting flickering amber light across the faces of the small group. Daniel watched Blaze nudge Martha gently, then shift to Henry's side, reinforcing the subtle thread of protection and companionship that had been their lifeline, and he felt a deep, grounding sense of satisfaction, the kind that comes from knowing that trust had been honored and care had been reciprocated in the purest form. Outside, the snow reflected the rising sun, creating a shimmering veil that softened the edges of the world, while inside, the warmth, loyalty, and quiet courage shared among the four companions created a sanctuary of peace and hope, a living testament to the power of steadfast presence, compassion, and the enduring miracle of kindness returned at precisely the moment it was most needed. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting a soft amber glow across the snow-covered landscape, Daniel Harper moved quietly through the cabin, tending to the small stove while Blaze followed each step, muscles coiled and alert beneath his thick silver-gray coat, ears swiveling to catch even the faintest sound outside. Martha and Henry Whitmore had begun to settle into the rhythm of the cabin, their movements slower, more deliberate, and less burdened by the tension of survival, each sip of hot tea bringing warmth that penetrated deep into frozen bones. Daniel knelt beside the hearth, adjusting logs so the fire spread evenly, the gentle crackle punctuating the otherwise hushed space. While outside, the trees swayed gently under the weight of snow, shadows lengthening as the sunlight filtered through the branches in long golden shafts. Blaze stretched and then curled beside Martha, resting his head lightly on her knee, a silent reassurance, while Daniel shared observations in his calm, steady voice about the subtle changes in the snow, the way light reflected off the icy surfaces and the soft murmur of the creek beginning to stir beneath its frozen layer, every word weaving a quiet comfort into the room. Henry's eyes wandered toward the window, tracing patterns in the frost, and a faint smile tugged at his lips as he murmured about memories of winters past, while Daniel listened intently, responding with gentle affirmations, the cadence of his words steady and grounding, blending seamlessly with the soft hiss of the fire and the occasional pop of wood. Outside, the wind had become a gentle sigh, rustling the remaining snow in slow, deliberate motions, and the entire forest seemed to pause in quiet observation, the world holding its breath alongside the small group inside. Daniel poured another cup of warm water for Blaze, who lapped it carefully, then returned to Martha, nudging her gently with his snout, a reminder that vigilance and care continued even in safety. The Whitmores exchanged soft words, their voices warm and tentative, sharing simple stories and small laughs that had been absent during the storm, while Daniel watched the play of light across their faces, noting how relaxation had softened lines of worry and tension. Blaze shifted occasionally, ears pricked toward the door or window, and Daniel followed his gaze, reassured by the dog's calm confidence, each movement a subtle signal that the world, though harsh outside, was now a space of trust and protection. The firelight flickered across the wooden beams and worn floorboards, casting long shadows that danced gently, reflecting the shared quiet and growing bond among them. In the soft amber glow, Daniel felt the weight of the past lift slightly, replaced by a present filled with gratitude, the subtle miracles of loyalty, courage, and kindness wrapping the cabin in an invisible warmth as tangible as the fire. And as snow continued to fall silently outside, the four companions sat together in unspoken harmony, each heartbeat syncing with the others, a gentle rhythm of survival, trust, and quiet wonder at the enduring power of steadfast presence and care. The golden light of late afternoon filtered through the frost-laden windows, casting long, delicate patterns across the cabin floor, illuminating Daniel Harper as he moved quietly among the small group, offering gentle words and gestures to ensure Martha and Henry were comfortable and warm, while Blaze shifted slightly, ears flicking at every subtle sound, ever vigilant yet relaxed, a steady presence anchoring the household. The snow outside had softened into a fine, sparkling dusting, the forest beyond the cabin bathed in muted light, branches bending slightly under the weight of the powder, creating a serene tableau that seemed almost untouched by time. Daniel refilled the tin cups with warm tea, the steam curling upward and mingling with the soft scent of pine and lingering smoke from the stove, and Henry and Martha sipped slowly, eyes meeting Daniel's with quiet gratitude, voices soft, almost reverent in the stillness. Each breath in the cabin carried warmth and calm, a counterpoint to the wild storm that had threatened just hours before, and Daniel watched the subtle rise and fall of Blaze's chest as the dog rested near Martha, a living embodiment of trust and protection. Light shifted subtly across the walls, flickering gently as the fire crackled, casting shadows that danced over the rough wood beams, floorboards, and the worn edges of furniture, bringing a living texture to the space. Conversation flowed naturally now, punctuated by small laughs and shared observations about the softened landscape outside, the subtle sounds of a creek thawing, and the occasional bird daring to venture through the winter air, each sound a reminder that life persisted, and even the harshest conditions eventually yielded moments of peace. Daniel adjusted the blanket around Henry's shoulders and Martha's knees, noting the relaxation in their posture, shoulders easing, hands less clenched, and the subtle warmth of connection that had grown between them over the course of the day. Blaze nudged Martha gently, and she stroked the dog's thick fur, feeling the calm intelligence and quiet reassurance in every movement, a living bridge between them and the stability Daniel provided. Outside, the snow shimmered softly in the fading sun, crystalline and still, while inside, the cabin felt alive with the invisible threads of loyalty, courage, and enduring kindness, the quiet miracle of presence and attention wrapping them in an intangible safety. Daniel's eyes met those of the Whitmores, shared understanding passing silently between them, and the four companions remained in the soft glow, hearts aligned in relief and gratitude, the snow continuing to fall in gentle patterns beyond the walls, a silent witness to the endurance, care, and steadfastness that had brought them safely to this sanctuary, leaving behind the storm and embracing a profound sense of belonging and quiet hope. As evening settled over the snowy landscape, the cabin glowed softly from within, a beacon of warmth against the fading light, and Daniel Harper moved among the group with deliberate calm, checking that blankets were tucked properly around Martha and Henry while Blaze rested nearby, amber eyes alert but relaxed, every muscle in his frame signaling attentive presence. The storm had passed completely now, leaving a quiet hush outside, snowflakes drifting lazily from the pines onto the frozen ground, reflecting the pale light of the moon beginning to rise in the crisp, clear sky. Daniel poured a final cup of hot tea for the Whitmores, the steam rising gently, curling through the room like a living thread connecting them all in the shared safety and quiet of the cabin. The couple sat close together, hands intertwined, faces softened by relief and the comfort of warmth, eyes meeting Daniel's with unspoken gratitude that spoke volumes more than words could convey, and he nodded gently, allowing the moment to linger, every glance and gesture a testament to trust and resilience. Blaze shifted slightly, nudging Martha with his nose, then settling his head on Henry's knee, a steady presence that radiated reassurance, and Daniel felt a calm pride in the way the dog had guided and protected them through the storm. Shadows from the flickering fire danced across the wooden beams and rough floorboards, accentuating the texture of the worn cabin and the sense of history held within its walls, the space now infused with the subtle glow of human connection and quiet courage. Daniel recounted small details from their journey, speaking softly of the patterns in the snow, the gentle sounds of the forest awakening after the storm, and the glimmer of sunlight on icy branches, each word weaving a subtle sense of wonder and reflection into the room. Outside, the night deepened, stars twinkling faintly above the snow-draped trees, and a stillness settled over the forest, the world holding its breath alongside those within the cabin, the air charged with the quiet satisfaction of survival and shared humanity. The Whitmores began to share stories of their past, simple recollections of winters long ago, small joys and lessons learned, each tale spoken in soft tones that added layers of warmth and intimacy to the cabin, while Daniel listened, acknowledging every pause and nuance, his presence steady, grounding, and silently protective. Blaze raised his head occasionally, ears flicking to the faintest noises outside, then returned to his resting position, and Daniel noted the subtle reassurance in the dog's posture, the unspoken communication of loyalty, awareness, and calm. As the fire crackled and the moonlight traced gentle patterns on the walls, the four companions sat together in quiet reflection, hearts synchronized with the gentle rhythm of life in the cabin, each breath and heartbeat a silent affirmation of the trust, courage, and steadfast kindness that had brought them to this moment, leaving a lingering sense of hope, safety, and the enduring miracle of compassion quietly returned. The sky outside the cabin had turned a deep indigo, the first hints of stars twinkling above the snow-covered pines, while inside, Daniel Harper moved with quiet purpose, checking the small stove and adding kindling to maintain a steady warmth that filled the room with a gentle amber glow. Blaze lay stretched out near Martha and Henry Whitmore, muscles relaxed yet alert, head resting lightly on Henry's knee, eyes half closed, listening for even the faintest sound of the forest beyond, a silent guardian in the cozy refuge of the cabin. Daniel poured another round of warm tea, the steam curling upward in soft spirals, mingling with the subtle scent of pine and smoke, and placed the cups carefully in front of the couple, noting the way Martha's hands clasped around the tin, drawing in warmth as her eyes softened with quiet gratitude. The fire crackled gently, casting dancing shadows across the worn wooden beams and floorboards, reflecting the passage of years and the shelter that had withstood many storms, now sheltering four lives united by circumstance and kindness. Outside, the snow glistened in the moonlight, a delicate, crystalline blanket over the frozen ground, and Daniel spoke softly, recounting small details of the landscape. See how the light catches the tips of the branches. It almost looks as though the trees are breathing. And Martha and Henry nodded, leaning into the warmth of the room, their expressions unburdened by fear for the first time since the blizzard. Blaze shifted, raising his head to glance toward the door, then returned to resting, tail sweeping gently across the floor, a quiet reassurance that they were safe, protected, and cared for. Conversation flowed in gentle rhythms, stories of past winters and small joys exchanged softly, laughter light and infrequent but meaningful, weaving a tapestry of comfort and trust that filled the cabin with more warmth than the fire alone. Daniel watched the subtle interplay of light and shadow, noticing how the amber glow accentuated the lines of Martha and Henry's faces, softened by relief, and he felt the steady satisfaction of a day completed with courage and care, the quiet miracle of having guided them to safety. Outside, the wind had stilled to a whisper, snowflakes drifting lazily from the pines, each landing softly, reflecting the silvery light, while inside, the presence of loyalty, vigilance, and shared humanity created a sanctuary where hearts beat in unison, aligned with the rhythm of trust and quiet wonder. Daniel looked to Blaze, whose amber eyes met his own with understanding and shared pride, and then to Martha and Henry, their expressions serene and grateful, and in that soft evening glow, Daniel felt the profound weight of kindness returned, a miracle measured not in wealth or grand gestures, but in warmth, safety, and the enduring presence of love and loyalty that had carried them through the storm and into this calm. The first stars glittered faintly above the snow-covered forest as Daniel Harper moved through the cabin, adjusting the fire to ensure a consistent glow, the warmth wrapping around Martha and Henry Whitmore like a gentle embrace, while Blaze shifted beside them, head resting lightly on Martha's lap, ears attentive to the faintest rustle of wind or falling snow outside. The cabin was quiet but alive with subtle sounds, the gentle crackle of burning logs, the soft murmur of their shared breaths, and the faint settling of the wooden beams, each creak a reminder of the shelter's resilience. Daniel refilled the tin cups with warm tea, steam curling upward, mingling with the scent of pine and smoke lingering in the air, and placed them carefully within reach of the couple, who accepted them with grateful, tender gestures. The light from the stove and flickering candles danced across the rough-hewn floorboards and beams, highlighting textures and imperfections that told a story of endurance and care, while outside, the snow reflected the pale starlight, a silent canvas of purity and stillness. Daniel spoke softly about the patterns of frost on the windows and the delicate sounds of the forest settling after the storm, each word measured and deliberate, weaving comfort and calm into the room, and Martha and Henry listened intently, their faces relaxed, lines of worry softened by relief and warmth. Blaze nudged Henry gently with his snout, and the elder man's hand rose instinctively to rest upon the dog's head, feeling the steady pulse of strength and reassurance beneath his fingertips. Daniel observed the interplay of firelight and shadow, the way it accentuated the contours of the cabin and the faces of its occupants, each flicker a quiet echo of the courage and patience that had guided them through the blizzard. Conversation became a gentle rhythm, stories shared in muted tones, memories of winters past, and quiet lessons learned exchanged with care, punctuated by soft laughter and the occasional sigh of contentment. The air was filled with the subtle magic of survival and connection, a tapestry woven from trust, compassion, and steadfast presence, and Daniel felt a deep sense of satisfaction as he watched Blaze settle fully against Martha, tail sweeping lazily across the floor. Outside, the moon rose higher, casting silver streaks across the snow and illuminating the trees in soft, reflective light, while inside, warmth, safety, and the quiet miracle of kindness enveloped them, each heartbeat and breath sinking to the rhythm of enduring hope. Daniel glanced at the couple, their eyes softened with gratitude, then at Blaze, whose attentive gaze seemed to carry understanding beyond words. And in that serene moment, the cabin felt like a sanctuary not only of wood and fire but of loyalty, courage, and the quiet, enduring power of human kindness returned in its purest form. As dawn broke over the snow-dusted forest, casting pale golden light through frost-laced windows, Daniel Harper moved quietly within the cabin, adjusting the fire to maintain a gentle warmth that reached every corner and wrapped Martha and Henry Whitmore in comforting heat, while Blaze shifted slightly, tail sweeping the floor and head resting lightly on Henry's knee, eyes bright with awareness and loyalty. The cabin seemed to hum with quiet life, the subtle crackle of the fire blending with the faint settling of the wooden beams and floorboards, each sound a reminder of endurance and shelter, while outside, the snow shimmered softly, the pale light reflecting off every branch and drape of frost. Daniel poured hot tea into tin cups, the steam curling upward and mingling with the scent of pine and lingering smoke, and handed them to the couple, who accepted with gentle hands, eyes bright with the deep gratitude of those who had been guided safely through peril. Conversation flowed naturally, voices low and steady, filled with reflections on the storm, the forest, and simple stories of winters past, weaving a quiet rhythm of trust and connection that filled the room with warmth beyond the fire. Daniel watched the subtle changes of light as it moved across the cabin walls, tracing lines of texture, knots in the wood, and the gentle flicker of shadows dancing across the faces of the Whitmores, softening the features shaped by decades of experience and hardship. Blaze nudged Martha gently, then shifted closer to Henry, providing a sense of steady protection and comfort, a living bridge between human hearts in the aftermath of uncertainty. Daniel spoke softly of small observations, the shimmer of frost, the way the snow absorbed sound outside, the distant call of a bird brave enough to venture through the winter air, and Martha and Henry listened, their expressions calm, their shoulders relaxed, the tightness of fear replaced with a quiet contentment that came from safety and trust. The room was filled with a gentle intimacy, each action deliberate, each glance and gesture an affirmation of care, and Daniel felt the weight of responsibility and the quiet joy of having ensured their safety. Outside, the moon reflected off the snow, creating a silvery glow that softened the edges of the world, while inside, the steady warmth, the loyalty of Blaze, and the shared presence of the four companions created a sanctuary that felt timeless, a haven built on courage, kindness, and vigilance. Daniel looked at the couple, noting the deep trust in their eyes, then at Blaze, who met his gaze with silent understanding, and in that moment, the cabin was not only a refuge from the storm, but a living testament to the enduring power of compassion, loyalty, and the quiet miracles that unfold when courage meets selfless care, leaving them all bound by the invisible threads of hope, warmth, and enduring human connection. As the pale morning light filtered through the frost-covered windows, the cabin held a quiet stillness, the fire crackling softly in the hearth as Daniel Harper moved deliberately among them, offering gentle guidance to Martha and Henry Whitmore, while Blaze rested faithfully at their side, alert yet calm, eyes bright and ears twitching at the faintest sounds from the forest outside. The snow had settled into a smooth, sparkling blanket over the landscape, each branch and twig adorned with delicate frost, and the faint shimmer of sunlight made the frozen world outside appear almost magical, a silent witness to the endurance and courage of the previous day. Daniel refilled the tin cups with steaming tea, the vapor curling upward in delicate tendrils, mingling with the subtle scent of pine and smoke, and placed them carefully within reach of the couple, who accepted them with small, grateful nods, their expressions softened by comfort and relief. Conversation drifted easily, gentle words shared about winters past, quiet joys, and simple pleasures that had survived the harshness of time and weather, each story knitting a deeper connection between the four companions, and each glance or gesture a reaffirmation of trust and care. Blaze shifted, nudging Martha lightly with his snout, and she stroked the dog's thick fur with a tender smile, drawing strength from his calm presence, while Daniel observed the subtle interplay of light and shadow across the cabin walls, noting how the amber glow of the fire enhanced the textures of the wooden beams and floorboards and reflected the relief and gratitude etched upon the Whitmores' faces. Outside, the snow sparkled like crushed diamonds beneath the slowly rising sun, while inside, warmth, loyalty, and the quiet miracle of human kindness intertwined, each heartbeat syncing with the others in a rhythm of calm and safety. Daniel spoke softly of the subtle movements in the forest beyond the cabin, the gentle whisper of wind through the pines, the distant call of a bird braving the winter air, and Martha and Henry listened, comforted by both the words and the presence that surrounded them. Blaze lifted his head briefly, ears flicking at the faintest sound, then rested again, eyes half closed, exuding reassurance and the quiet strength that had guided them all to safety. Daniel adjusted the blanket around Henry's shoulders and Martha's knees, feeling the warmth of their trust and the subtle weight of relief settling over the room, each motion measured and deliberate, blending comfort with vigilance. As the morning light strengthened, shadows from the fire and sun mingled across the cabin, casting long, soft patterns over the rough-hewn floorboards and walls, and Daniel felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that courage, loyalty, and steadfast care had preserved not only their bodies but their spirits. The cabin, with its glowing hearth, the loyal dog, and the serene expressions of Martha and Henry, became a sanctuary of enduring hope, a testament to the subtle miracles that emerge when kindness is met with trust, and when the quiet actions of one steadfast heart ripple outward to protect, comfort, and illuminate the lives of others, leaving behind a lasting sense of belonging and the gentle affirmation that in the midst of storms, both literal and figurative, human compassion and loyalty can transform fear into warmth, uncertainty into peace, and fleeting moments into enduring memories.